Why was nuclear always the solution? First, let me talk to you about a country that did not understand this and suffered terrible consequences because of it. Germany, the economic powerhouse of Europe, educated population that cares about the climate. They care so much that they elect the Green Party. Little did they know that they would be responsible for more pollution than ever before. How did that happen? Back in this time, the Green Party had a very anti-nuclear stance, and on March 11, 2011, Fukushima happened. The catastrophe sparked an even stronger anti-nuclear campaign, and the Green Party won historical numbers just after. And with that, the nuclear destruction plan began, or Energiewende, which means energy transition. Germany was supposed to retire their nuclear power plants and replace them with wind, solar and biomass. And that led by the very scientifically driven Green Party. Now, let's see the result of that green transition. Today, Germany releases 9.5 times as much carbon per kilowatt produced than France, and is the leader in the European Union, as you can see in this graph, where Germany is the black line. Today, more than 13 years after the launch of the renewables plan, 77.6% of energy consumption still comes from fossil fuels. It's critical to emphasize on consumption rather than production, because this represents the actual CO2 emissions released into the atmospheres by the population. To make matters worse, the ecologist Energiewende initiative has been reported to impose 12 billion annually in social cost, largely driven by the increase of mortality linked to pollution from fossil fuels. This is a classic case where the public opinion, media and politicians all unite towards something irrational.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And that's not even addressing the issue of energy independence or the staggering rise of electricity prices following the Ukraine war. Germany, which relied on Russia for over 50% of its natural gas before the conflict, faced severe disruption in supply. The dependence led to a 280% increase in energy prices by late 2024 compared to the pre-crisis period 2016-2019, putting immense strain on households and industries alike. This is why I always say that it's fundamentally contradictory to advocate for ecological sustainability while opposing nuclear energy, especially given the current state of accessible technologies. Today, I'm going to demonstrate why nuclear was always the solution. Now, maybe all of this economic and climate sacrifice was necessary in Germany. After all, Chernobyl and Fukushima were a real accident, and nuclear might be very dangerous. Let's take a look at the reason and consequences of these accidents. Now, for Chernobyl, it's well referenced, and there's an amazing show that relates exactly what happened. But basically, it mostly happened because of the secrecy of the USSR back then, and not intrinsically the technology itself. Although the design wasn't very good compared to reactors outside the USSR, but in general it is largely due to the safety culture and secrecy, since the design flaws were known but kept secret. In addition, the staff was poorly trained and uninformed. Anyways, you get the idea. It's not the technology that is to blame, but the rest. It's like driving a car. You could run it into a tree at 200 miles an hour and then blame the car for being extremely dangerous. It has the potential to lead to a disaster, but it's how you use it that determines its safety. Now, for Fukushima, it's a little bit different. The 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster, caused by a massive earthquake and tsunami, was widely sensationalized, evoking fear of nuclear apocalypse. I mean, I remember thinking it was the end of the world when I was a child, and that nuclear waste would travel all around the world and kill us all. The media coverage was pretty crazy when you consider that there were no immediate deaths linked to radiation exposure. One radiation-related death was reported years later. The majority of fatalities over 2000s were due to evacuation stress rather than nuclear incident itself. Modern nuclear reactors now possess enhanced seismic resilience, employing advanced safety measures designed to endure even extreme natural disaster. These advancements ensure nuclear energy remains one of the safest and most reliable energy sources. Now, talking about the benefits. Nuclear energy is by far the most dense energy source of any available currently. Just to give you an idea, uranium-235 contains 2 to 3 million times the energy equivalent of oil or coal. So 1 kilo of uranium used for power generation in light water reactors corresponds to nearly 10,000 kilos of mineral oil. So this is 1 kilo of uranium and this is 10,000 kilos of oil. It's a pretty shit visualization, but that's all I can do. I have no skills in regards to rendering. But you get the idea. For an average human, you need around 25 grams of uranium per year, and for your whole life, it would correspond to approximately a small smoothie bottle. It's like magic, seriously. Now compare that to oil and gas, and you can imagine how nuclear is extremely environmentally friendly. From a cost point of view, the investment needed for nuclear energy are very high, but the lifetime of factories are long. For costs, I've seen many different numbers. But if we take the US Energy Department graph, we see that nuclear is cheaper on the long run. With $25 per megawatt hour, it's cheaper than fossil fuel, wind turbine, and solar. Even if solar becomes cheaper than nuclear, which it probably will, nuclear should still be used because it's not an intermittent source of energy, meaning at night it continues to produce energy. So on a grid where a large proportion of the production is renewable, which are all intermittent, nuclear would make a lot of sense because it would be used at night. This graph shows us the capacity factor by energy source, which is how much the facility or plant actually produces compared to max production theoretically. And here you see the problem with solar and wind if used alone. Let's say for a hypothetical 1000 kilowatt installation, the solar output would in reality be 249 kilowatts because of the night and when it's not sunny, etc., etc. Whilst nuclear capacity is at 92%. So basically what you plan is what you get, which is very nice for the grid. Low CO2 emission. For some reason, a lot of people believe that nuclear energy is very pollutant, maybe because of the fumes it releases, but this is all just water that is used to cool down the reactor. When it runs, it's basically CO2 free. And according to this graph, nuclear releases even less CO2 than solar energy because of the construction of the panels. But we're really comparing it to fossil fuel, and you can see how big the difference is. One final fear is nuclear waste management. But here again, most people don't get that more than 99% of waste, volume-wise, isn't dangerous, crazy, 10,000 year long decaying, highly radioactive waste. And that bad waste is tiny compared to the electricity production, since we saw how dense nuclear energy was. So to give you an idea, it would be approximately 2.6 kilo worth of waste if you got 100% of your energy from nuclear for your whole life. So there's no real problem. Now a question for you. How much do you think nuclear energy killed accidents taken into account compared to other forms of electricity? Well, it's less than wind. I'm sure you didn't think that instinctively. And when you look at coal and oil, wow, so much deadlier. Like brown coal kills 1,090 times more than nuclear. With these kinds of numbers, you really begin to wonder why nuclear is pictured as the most dangerous energy form in the media. Always be data-based, my friends. Objectivity is the only way. Personally, I think that nuclear energy is a midterm solution. Obviously, we need to shift to a sustainable energy economy, and we are. Coal and oil will soon be obsolete as cars and more objects begin to electrify. But we have a problem. As we saw earlier, the intermittent aspect of wind and solar makes it not sustainable alone. That's why Germany, who produces like 50% of their energy with renewables, are still the most polluting country in Europe, because it's renewable and then the extreme opposite, coal. But if you had renewables with nuclear, no problem anymore. And we don't really have the technology yet to have massive battery pack to power the grid during the night while solar produces during the day. Long term, of course, the dream is fusion. It's the ultimate source of energy production. But in the meantime, nuclear fission is the way combined with other sources of renewables. I hope I've shown my argument in this video clearly enough. And there's a lot of things we haven't talked about, but it's a very complicated subject, so this is the main idea. Please send this video to someone who is unaware or ideologically biased and doesn't realize that nuclear is the most rational way to go. Because in the end, the greatest enemy of nuclear isn't cost or safety, but public opinion and poor education on the subject. Thanks you all for watching, and don't forget to, of course, subscribe. Bye.